Oh, how he's bleeding, Hannah whispered again in a solemn voice. So, children, from today we are going to start here with the fourth part of this chapter, and the name of the chapter is The Enemy. So, here you can see that Hannah is really quite in a perturbed condition. She is really quite in a troubled condition. She is really quite anxious, seeing to the bleeding body of that stranger. And that is what she has been highlighting here. That is what she brings into the attention of Dr. Sadao in her solemn voice, in her serious voice. The mist screened them now completely. So children, now you can see that they were completely under the screen of the mist. They were completely under the cover of the mist. कि वो पूरी तरीके से उस धुंध की चादर में ढक गए थे. और हाना ने उस समय देखा कि वो पर्सन ब्लीड कर रहा है, तो उसने बहुत परेशान होकर के डॉक्टर सदाओ का ध्यान इस बात की ओर आकर्षित किया कि देखो इसके शरीर से तो खून बह रहा है. And at this time of the day, no one came by. So it was that particular moment of the day. It means it was almost the darker part of the evening, and generally none of the passers by had been passing by during that time. कि generally उस time पे कोई वहाँ से निकलता नहीं था. The entire area was like a solitude. The entire area was completely means it was just not having any kind of movement of people in any way. It was completely a solitary place by this time. तो वहां से कोई आता जाता नहीं था उस वक्त तक, ये बात आपको बताई गई. द फिशरमैन हैड गॉन होम एंड इवन द चांस बीच कॉमर्स वुड हैव कंसीडर्ड द डे एट एन एंड. So what you have been told further, that the fishermen had gone home, that all the fishermen had been retreated back to their home. कि फिशरमैन इस टाइम तक, क्योंकि अंधेरा हो गया था, तो इस टाइम तक वो अपने घरों में जा चुके थे. एंड द चांस बीच कॉमर्स. चांस बीच कॉमर्स क्या होते हैं कि ये समुद्र के किनारे खड़े होकर के ऐसे देखते हैं कि कोई चीज़ समुद्र से बह करके कहीं मछली आ जाती है किनारे पर जो वापस नहीं जा पाती है, तो उसको पकड़ लिया, या कहीं पे कई बार पर्ल्स वगैरह भी इस तरीके से निकल आती हैं तो उनको उठा लिया, या कई बार शेल्स वगैरह निकल आते हैं जिसमें कुछ प्रीशियस भी होते हैं तो उनको उठा लेते हैं. तो ये काम करते हैं चांस बीच कॉमर्स की, जो बस ऐसे ही खड़े होकर के वहाँ मौके की तलाश करते हैं. तो दिस काइंड ऑफ चांस बीच कॉमर्स हैड आल्सो कंसीडर्ड द डे टू हैव एंडेड, एंड दैट इज व्हाई दे हैड आल्सो रिट्रीटेड बैक होम. कि ये सब भी अपने घरों में वापस जा चुके थे, तो मतलब काफी वहां पे सन्नाटा था. दैट इज व्हाट यू हैव बीन टोल्ड अप टू नाउ. What shall we do with this man? Sadao muttered. So Dr. Sadao was himself confused. He was finding himself in a state of dilemma. He was not able to understand what they should do. So that is what he says here. What shall we do with this man? So probably he might also have been seeking the opinion of Hannah about it. कि वो खुद नहीं समझ पा रहे थे कि क्या होना चाहिए इसके साथ. तो शायद उन्होंने हाना की राय जानने की कोशिश की यहाँ पे. But his trained hands seemed of their own will to be doing what they could do to stanch the fearful bleeding. So what you have been told here, children, that as he was an expert doctor, so however on one part, he had been conversing with Hannah, he had been talking to Hannah, yet his expert hands were doing whatever they could have done to stanch the fearful bleeding. कि एक तरफ तो वो बात कर रहा था, लेकिन साइड बाय साइड उसके हाथ वो काम कर रहे थे जो कुछ भी उसको एज मेडिकल एड करना था, कि जो कुछ भी खून को रोकने के लिए उसको करना था वो साइड बाय साइड वो कर रहा था. तो दैट वाज समथिंग लाइक द एक्सपर्टीज ऑफ द डॉक्टर, कि वो कैसे ना कैसे करके और उस स्ट्रेंजर की मदद तो कर ही रहा था. भले ही वो कंफ्यूज था, भले ही वो खुद नहीं जान पा रहा था कि इसके साथ में क्या करना है, बट ही वॉज डूइंग वॉट एवर ही कुड हैव डन इन ऑर्डर टू हेल्प दैट पर्सन आउट. He packed the wound with the sea moss that strewed the beach. So at that particular moment, at that particular phase of time, Dr. Sadao hadn't got any medical accessories available there. He hadn't got bandages, he hadn't got anything as such. So what he did, he just packed the wound with sea moss. वहाँ पे जो घास लगी हुई थी, वही घास को उखाड़ करके उन्होंने उस जख्म पे भर दिया कि खून न निकले. That strewed the beach. Strewed means strewn. Strewn means फैला हुआ, कि the grass that had grown on the beach, he just took it and stuffed into the wound so that the wound might not bleed. तो इस तरीके से जो कुछ भी एक एक्सपर्ट डॉक्टर की यही पहचान होती है कि जो कुछ भी रिसोर्सेज अवेलेबल हैं उससे वो अपने पेशेंट की भरपूर मदद कर पाएं. तो इस तरीके से डॉक्टर सदाओ ने किया यहाँ पे. द मैन mourned with pain in his stupor but did not awaken. So further what you have been told, that the man mourned with pain in his stupor. Stupor means unconsciousness. That the man was completely in unconsciousness, and yet he mourned, yet he cried on account of the pain. And as the wound was touched, definitely it would have caused much pain, and that is why the person was continuously mourning while the doctor was doing whatever he could have done to provide a remedy to the wound. But he did not awaken, means the person was really in such a deep unconsciousness that he was not getting up. He was mourning, he was crying, yet he did not get up. The best thing that we could do would be to put him back into the sea. Sadao answered himself. So, as you have seen, children, that both Dr. Sadao and Hana were confused about what they should do with the man. So, initially, Dr. Sadao thought that the best idea would be to throw him back into the sea. So, that is what you have been told here. कि उन्होंने अपने आप से ही कहा, अपने आप को ही उन्होंने उत्तर दिया कि क्यों ना इस आदमी को फिर से समुद्र में फेंक दिया जाए, क्योंकि इसको बचाने में बड़ा रिस्क है. Now that the bleeding was stopped for the moment, he stood up and dusted the sand from his hands. So, with his traditional methods, he had been able to stop the bleeding of the wound. जैसा कि आपने देखा कि उसमें उन्होंने मॉस भर दिया था, उसमें उन्होंने घास भर दी थी और इस तरीके से जख्म से खून बहना उन्होंने रोक दिया था. So now Dr. Sadao stood up and he just dusted his hands. He just dusted sand from his hand. That is what you have been told. So now he was relaxed to some extent as he had been able to stop the fearful bleeding. Yes, undoubtedly that would be the best, Hana said steadily. So Hana also agreed with the thought of Dr. Sadao. She also agreed upon that would be the best thing, that the person must be thrown back into the sea, because definitely there was associated a great risk with saving some stranger's life. So what Hana said, yes, means she added in an affirmative tone that undoubtedly that would be the best thing. She said steadily. Steadily means with a stability, with a confirmation, with an assertive note. She said that definitely that is going to be the best thing. But she continued to stare down at the motionless man. So it is easy to say that a living person is going to be thrown back into the sea, but that is really not easy for a civilized man to do. So Hana and Dr. Sadao, both on the one hand, had been thinking that they should be throwing the man back into the sea, but they dared not do anything as such, because they were compassionate fellows, they were merciful fellows. So it was really very difficult for them to do any action as such. So Hana, just with compassion, बहुत दया के साथ, mercifully, she had been staring down at the motionless man, कि वो लगातार उस बेचारे आदमी को देख रही थी और सोच रही थी कितनी मुसीबत में है ये. तो ये बात आपको समझ में आ गई होगी यहाँ तक. We sheltered a white man in our house. We should be arrested. And if we turned him over as a prisoner, he would certainly die, Sadao said. So that was the confusion, that was the dilemma that Dr. Sadao had got in his mind. That if they are going to give him shelter, definitely they are going to be arrested on account of the charges of being treason. कि देशद्रोह के चार्जेस पे, देशद्रोह के अपराध पर उनको गिरफ्तार कर लिया जाएगा अगर उन्होंने एक अमेरिकन को अपने घर में शेल्टर दी. एंड इफ दे आर गोइंग टू leave him uncared, definitely he is going to die on account of being shot by a bullet. So that was the state of confusion, that was the situation of dilemma for Dr. Sadao. Actually here the software was not working properly, and that is why my mind was a bit diverted and I was not able to concentrate myself on the explanation, because after 3 or 4 minutes continuous effort, now I have been able to set the video recording. There was some unknown kind of problem with the software. Anyway, so said Dr. Sadao. So that is what he said, that if they are going to shelter a white man, definitely they are going to be arrested on the charges of being treason, and if they leave him uncared, he is going to die on account of having been shot by a gun. That is what you have been told here. The kindest thing would be to put him back into the sea, Hana said. So Hana said that would be the best thing, to put him back into the sea, कि इसको दोबारा से समुद्र में फेंक दिया जाए, यही सबसे अच्छी चीज होगी. But neither of them moved. So, as they were doctors, they were not cruel minded people. They were not able to do any action as such. They were not able to take any action as such. They were not able to throw him back into the sea. They were staring with a curious repulsion upon the inert figure. So, the man was an inert figure. Inert means inactive. The man was an inactive figure. Inert gases also you study in science: helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon, zero group elements. So that is they also do not react. And in the same way here, the man was also not reacting. He was also not showing any kind of activity, and that is why he has been called to be an inert figure. And they had been staring at that person with a curious repulsion. They hadn't got any kind of attraction for that person. They just had a repulsion. They just had a kind of disliking for the person. That is what you have been told here. What is he? Hannah whispered. So once again, they were just trying to find out the reality of the person. Once again, they were just trying to guess out the actual identity of the person. Hannah said, "What is he?" She saw something. "There is something about him that looks American," Sadao said. So Sadao said that this person appears to be an American, that he appears to be an American by his looks. That is what he wanted to say. He took up the battered cap, and then he took up the cap of the person. He took up his battered, his just worn out cap. Yes, there was almost gone the faint lettering, a sailor from American warship. So they just read out something that was written on the cap. And what was written on the cap? US Navy. So in this way, they had been able to guess it out that he was probably a sailor from American Navy. And somehow he had been caught in Japan, and then he tried to escape, and in this way he has been shot in his back. The man was a prisoner of war. So in this way they have been able to know the ultimate reality about that person, that this man is a prisoner of war, कि ये एक prisoner of war है जो कि कैप्टिविटी से भाग रहा था और यूएस नेवी को ये बिलोंग करता है. जैसा कि उसकी कैप के ऊपर एक फेंट लेटरिंग थी यूएस नेवी, तो उसको पढ़ करके उन्होंने इस बात का अंदाजा लगाया कि ये कौन है, और उन्होंने पूरी कहानी को समझ लिया. He has escaped, Hannah cried softly. So now they had been able to find out the entire reality of that person. वो उससे जुड़ी सारी बातों को समझ गए थे. उनको समझ में आ गया था कि ये कोई प्रिजनर ऑफ वॉर है जो कि कैप्टिविटी में था और ये वहाँ से भागा है. तो वही बात हाना यहाँ पे कह रही है कि he has escaped and that is why he is wounded, and that is the reason on account of which he does have a gun wound on his back. That while he was running away from the captivity, he must have been shot by the Japanese, and that is why he is wounded. In the back, Sadao agreed. So the same thing that I told you. They hesitated, looking at each other. So now they were still in a greater dilemma, what they should do. So that is why they had been looking at each other. Then Hannah said with resolution. So with a firm-mindedness, resolution means firm-mindedness, कि थोड़ा मजबूती के साथ हाना ने कहा, come, are we able to put him back into the sea? कि चलो हम इसे फेंक आते हैं समुद्र में. If I am able, are you? Sadao asked. So Dr. Sadao said that if he determines to throw him back into the sea, whether Hannah would be able to cooperate, whether Hannah would be able to take such a harsh decision. So definitely they were not in the capacity to take such a harsh decision. And that is why ultimately they were going to tend him. उन्हें उसकी मदद करनी ही थी. तो यही आप आगे देखेंगे.